Buhle, thank you so much for joining us in the studio today to be in conversation about all things fintech, finance, and hopefully how that enables us with our purpose-led entrepreneurship journey and who we want to be in the world. And so I'm so curious to find out about your take when it comes to financial inclusion, what is fintech, and a lot of the buzzwords that are coming through. And I'm wondering if I'll even be able to bring up this one specific 3-letter word that I might hopefully ask you to give us some of your take on it. But before we get into that, please tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Great. Thanks, Nobisa. I'm really excited to be chatting with you today. So my name is Buhle Goslar, and I'm a technology operating executive. I'm currently the Africa CEO for Jumo, which is a banking platform that operates across emerging markets, and we're in the business of giving people and entrepreneurs access to finance, many of them for the first time. And it's a wonderful, I think, domain to be in at this time. And I think you've alluded a little bit to that, right?
Yes.
It feels a bit like, people used to say data is the new oil. And now I think you can extend that to fintech is the new oil. It's driving economies. It's changing the world. It's changing livelihoods. And I feel really blessed, actually, to be working in this space.
I think one of my favorite things is, in terms of growing to know you, has been understanding your passion around inclusion and what technology can do to leapfrog certain challenges, but also amplify opportunities and, of course, bring us closer to solutions. And so many people are walking around and saying, fintech, fintech. What is fintech, actually? Let's start there, because I think we get caught up in the buzzword, but then we actually don't really understand it, but we use it a lot. What is fintech?
That's a really good question. When I think about it, it's just technology applied in finance. And technology, what is technology? A knife is technology. A cup is technology. All technology is a tool to make it easier for you to do something. Sometimes it makes it faster for you to do something. It removes friction. And another thing that technology can do is that it can help you create more value. And that's really what's happening with fintech, right? It allows you technology also typically allows you to do something at scale. So if we take financial inclusion and fintech and we kind of break that down, you're looking at a problem with a really big number, right? So I think, the last Findex data had about a third of the world's adult population still financially excluded. So not having access to bank accounts or payment tools or, a store of value like a savings account, right? And that's a lot of people, right? It's almost like 1.7 billion people. You're looking at that and you're going, this is a really big problem. And why are countries and, the nonprofit sector concerned about this? It's not because, having a bank account in and of itself is life-changing, but it's because if you look at things like, let's say, the Sustainable Development Goals, what you realize is that if people don't have access to those tools so that they can participate in the economy, you don't get to gender equity, to, education, to access to healthcare. So these financial tools help you move around in the world, right? And so it's important that people have access to it. So that's why financial inclusion is important. Financial inclusion is also important, again, not because, when you open a bank account, you suddenly feel like you've been transformed. It's because the financial tools at an individual level are helping you move about in the world with a sense of dignity, but also are helping you to move around in the world with the view to actually achieving your goals. So if you think about it, people are concerned about putting their children in school, right? Being able to respond to an emergency, whether that's medical or a death in the family. People are concerned about building businesses, for their own livelihoods, and kind of immediate income, but also for future generations. Now, to do all of those things, it's very difficult if a bank says, you need 16 documents in order to open an account, right? Because you're spending all your time on that. And maybe you don't have some of those documents. In Africa, many places don't have addresses. Yeah. So simple things like that, right? And this is where kind of fintech comes into play. Because fintech goes, well, let's look at this entire journey for you to access whatever the tool is, whether it's a savings account or access to a loan or payments, right? Let's look at this entire journey and see if there's a better way to do it. So in the case of Jumo, we're saying you don't need 16 documents. You already have a digital footprint because you have a mobile phone.
Yes.
Right? We can look at this digital footprint and all of the things that you've been doing, and we can use technology, so advanced analytics and AI, and we can score you, right? And we can score you actually more accurately than if you had brought us a pile of documents, right? And you don't need to go to a bank branch and spend money you don't have. You can do that, from the comfort of wherever you are, which might be your shop. And remember, time is money. So if you're going to the bank, you're actually, you're losing money. You could be in your business doing what is core, right? And so we're saying you can do that from there. And in fact, you don't even need to have a fancy phone. It can be a Nokia phone, with a rubber band.
Good old feature phone.
Good old feature phone, and you can apply and deliver, and we will deliver that loan into your mobile money account in a matter of seconds. And if, because Africa is still very much a cash society, you need to cash out, you can just walk down the street a couple of meters to a mobile money agent and cash out your loan, right? So, that's one example where you've just removed all of that friction. Now, of course, there's also other businesses doing super interesting things. Like, there was a time where if you wanted to open a shop, you had to hold stock.
Right.
Now, you look at a business like Kopia in Kenya, you can be a distributor and not hold any stock. So customers come, they order in rural areas. So these are customers who have never used e-commerce before, but you use your phone to place an order and they will deliver those goods and your customers come and collect. And on top of that, you don't even need to have a shop as in a retail shop. You could be a hairdresser and you sign up to be a distributor of goods. Like, how amazing is that?
It's so exciting, and I think it's also you're excited, so that excites me. and then it makes me so curious because it's saying that means the opportunity in terms of what technology can do when applied to the financial world, the opportunity is almost limitless in terms of how we can then unlock potential, enable entrepreneurs, and therefore unlock scale, growth, profits. You start thinking about wealth creation, and then, oh my goodness, these social outcomes that you alluded to in terms of, what does it look like when we move the needle in terms of access to quality education, access to potable water, and just suddenly we're starting to talk about the Sustainable Development Goals as a reality. We've been trying also in our discussions as a Branson Centre amongst ourselves, but also with the entrepreneurs with whom we partner, to bring in this idea that the Sustainable Development Goals aren't this thing that sits in a policymaker's hands, but they sit within our realm, and each one of us has a role to play to move the needle as we look at achieving these targets. And so I'm excited in terms of what Fintech is about and how you've explained it to us and how it speaks to financial inclusion. So when I'm an entrepreneur and I'm thinking Fintech, what are the things that I can think about that Fintech, when applied in my business, which is growing, what are the opportunities that exist in terms of enabling my business purely in terms of accessible Fintech?
So it's so interesting because I think most entrepreneurs don't really sit and think, what I need is Fintech, right? So most of the time, as an entrepreneur, you're sitting and you're thinking, I have a pain point.
I have many problems.
I have many problems. And how do I solve this? Right. So, maybe you're a creative entrepreneur and you're running a boutique in a market and you're losing half your sales because you don't accept cards. And, all these solutions that you've looked at, have been exorbitant. And then you come across something like a Yoko point of sale, right, that is mobile and you can now accept payments and it's super affordable and you purchase that. You might not know that that's Fintech.
Fintech, yeah.
Right. But what it's done is it's now put you in a position where you can grow your business. You could be a business that is generating sales predominantly online, maybe leveraging, existing platforms like YouTube, Instagram, etc. And you might be thinking to yourself, how do I reach certain markets. I'd like to, I'm in Africa, but I would like to actually have a global audience. And you're going, how do I, connect, and how do I get people to pay for this merchandise? And then somebody says to you, hey, there's this company, Paystack from Nigeria, they're now here, use them. You don't think, oh, Paystack is a fintech. You're just excited to be able to have a solution that you can use. And now you're in a position where you're sitting wherever you are, and you have a global audience. And this extends as well, to people who are effectively selling intellectual property, maybe copywriting. I came across an entrepreneur who said that I think he was making like $20,000, right, a month, which is really great, from zero to that, copywriting for, a global customer base. So, when people come across these tools, I don't think they necessarily think this is fintech. But I think what is happening is that these tools are saving them time, which is time that they can now plow back into their businesses. And I think that's really important. And these tools are also helping them realize exponential growth, right? Because everything is a lot more efficient. You've got a bigger kind of addressable market. And I think, that's something which, in any business is really, really important.
And so in understanding my pain point and not going, aha, fintech's going to solve this, but rather there is a solution out there that so happens to be fintech. How do I also understand the role of tech-enabled solutions? How do I understand the role of those solutions in terms of perhaps amplifying and improving upon my purpose and the positive impact that I'd like to make on the world? Or is that a separate conversation?
Nobisa, I think we even have to take a step back here and talk about why people are not using some of the tools that are available. Some of them are fintech, but there's other tools that can really help entrepreneurs, right? Digital marketing tools and so on. I think that there is an understanding of what it means to be an entrepreneur and to start a business that is outdated. I sometimes speak to people, and they want to start a business, and the first thing they're concerned about the registration, the website, and I'm like, whoa, you could just leverage what exists and really start to test whether that idea has an audience and refine your product even before you register. Get a few sales on Instagram, just see. Right? Instagram is a tool.
Yeah.
It's technology. You could just do that before you've gone and created an entire website and so on. And even with creating a website, people immediately go to, I have to hire all of these people. But in the first instance, you could just use tools like Canva, right? There's so many. So I think it's about really helping our entrepreneurs understand that this doesn't have to be hard. This doesn't have to be expensive, right? You can do this with ease. It doesn't have to, exactly. And it does. I think the overwhelming point is also a really important one, right? Because the other thing that we have, which is also enabled by technology, is community, right? I am often just bowled over by how much people are willing to share online. And in fact, maybe it's a testament to some of the conditioning that we have where everything needs to be difficult, where I'm almost like, you shouldn't be giving that for free, right? I go like, are you serious? Is this for free, right? There's this lady, she's the founder of Flying Doctors in Nigeria, which is an aviation company for emergency services, but she's also a VC. Yes. And she does amazing courses on YouTube. And I recently watched one of them about, venture capital investing. The quality of this content is amazing.
You're willing to pay for it.
I was willing to pay for it. And so if you think about it, if you're an entrepreneur that's starting out, you want to get seed funding, you're wondering which route to go, what's the difference between an angel investor, a VC investor, she's put it all on there for free.
Right? And so community then brings us back to inclusion, because I found people like me, I found people different to me, but we're perhaps driving towards the same objective, because community is about that shared experience, a shared objective. And so I feel included, I feel heard, I feel seen, and therefore I feel like whatever I put out there is quite valuable. And I think, I was reading something. You and I both like to read lots of many things.
Yeah.
I was reading, there's some predictions being made around where do we think the next unicorn hubs are going to be. And there is this thinking that the next unicorn hubs are actually already thriving outside of West Coast of the United States. And the main thing is that these are hubs, or cities specifically. The main defining point is the fact that they have community, they have ecosystems, they have people where whatever is happening will be heard and or seen, and therefore be valuable, and therefore brings in a bit of courage, bravery, but it also brings in a sense of purpose, because we're trying to achieve something or solve for something. And so I think that's what technology also does, is to your point, is bringing in this community.
Yeah, I'm seeing that. So I travel a lot across the continent for work, and I find it incredibly energizing. I mean, obviously here in Cape Town we have a blossoming tech community that you can plug into, and I think there's a very entrepreneurial vibe. But you get that same sense, that electric sense, if you go to Lagos. As well, Nairobi, you feel it. Kampala's also really starting to pop. And I think that's important, where you have a lot of people doing really cool things, but also going through really tough things, right? And it makes you feel like you're not alone. And I also think what's interesting is I feel like there's community there's two levels, right? There's community for you as the entrepreneur doing whatever it is that you're doing. But then also when you design a product and you want that product to scale, I think community plays a role again, right? So, if we take a South African example, Easy Equities, right? A lot of what's driving that business is really the community around it, right? All these people who are going, this is amazing. We now can have access, to the public market. We want to invest. We want to build generational wealth. So they're leveraging this technology, but they are, on Twitter, hyping each other up. Like, look at what I'm doing. This is what an index fund is, educating each other and really guiding, the platform on what to develop next. And I'm sure there's similar examples, in the US and in Europe. But I think that's amazing too.
It's exciting. How
technology, benefits in its design from community.
Yep.
But also benefits from community in order to grow and scale.
So, I mean, we would also be remiss not to mention, I guess, some of the concerns that have come through from the digital divide when we're talking about how limited access to some of the tools that technology brings our way means that those who have access then grow and thrive, included part of community, and those who don't have access to technology for various reasons are left behind. What is your take on that?
I think that is concerning. And I think, there's a view that just leave it to the technologists and private industry and they will sort it out, right? And to a certain degree, yes, you do have certain players who are constantly asking themselves, how do we give more people access? Is there potentially any bias if you're using advanced AI? Is there any bias in our algorithm? You do have, certain actors who are asking themselves these questions. But I don't think that we can just kind of leave it and hope for the best, right? I do think that there is a role to be played by governments. I spend a lot of time also, talking to regulators and various, government bodies. And I know that this is difficult because, it's a subject matter that is developing very quickly. And, sometimes there just isn't capacity or capability to think about how to engage with the tech industry in order to ensure that nobody gets left behind. But I do think that it's something that does need to be addressed proactively. Right. Because if it's not, what will happen is that we will breed a new type of inequality. So if you think, for instance, something that's really hot now is crypto.
Yes.
Right.
I was going to go there. Yeah. Because I'm like, what is Bitcoin? But actually, crypto.
Yeah.
Yes.
So crypto is exciting and all of this. But if you think about it, is this just a new type of exclusionary tool in the sense that, back in, the feudal system, you had families who got in first, they got the land. And actually up until today in some countries, you actually lease, you have a house, but you're leasing the actual land that it's on, right? And those people who, got a stake on that ground hundreds of years ago continue to benefit. And so really, can you close that gap? And I sometimes look at this, with crypto and I wonder, is this just a new type of feudal system, right? Because I have a son, he's 11, he's not participating in, purchasing crypto. So by the time he gets there, right?
He'll be many years behind.
Yeah.
I'm going to take a step back. What is cryptocurrency? Crash course for dummies. I'm the dummy.
Please, let's not do this question.
We're not going to do this question. Okay. What we do know is that in 2022, which is where we are, if I can kind of give us a timestamp, everyone's talking about NFTs. And the reason I bring them up is, to your previous point around, we talk about wondering if there could be space for regulation in, anything to do with technology.
Yeah.
But actually what's happening is that those who regulate simply cannot keep up. Mm-hmm. And so we're sitting in a world where we're talking about non-fungible tokens, and I'm not even sure if policymakers had imagined that this would be a thing, so let alone thinking about how to regulate it. Mm-hmm. So I feel like that's an example of the technology and the community and the innovation perhaps getting quite far ahead of regulators and I think even maybe society, and we're all catching up to it. But what are NFTs? I just want to throw this question out there because I think so many of us are a little bit confused.
Yeah. So, I think when you think about all of these things that are emerging, whether it's as a store of value or a way for us to exchange value, so crypto, NFTs, and so on, the question that you really need to ask yourself is, what is the use case for this, right? So what is broken that we need this? Because in reality, we could decide tomorrow to start using a glass or to start using, I don't know, stones, shells, whatever, right? So the question you need to ask is, what is the use case for this? And to be honest, to really break it down, the question I ask myself is, why is this better than cash?
Right.
And if you feel confident, right, that this is better than cash or even digital currency as we have it, then go ahead and invest in it. And also, if you feel comfortable that you can fully understand it, then go ahead and invest in it. So basic things that we need to think about when we are evaluating something as a store of value and as a medium of exchange is, so with money, I can ascribe a value at a certain date very clearly, right? I can say, like, how is it trading against the US dollar and so on. That's important, right? Do I know what it is that I actually have?
What you have in hand,
right?
Yeah.
Another thing that's really important to me is it accepted, right? So whether I carry cash as cash or I'm carrying a card, you have a certain level of confidence when you're at the restaurant that it will be accepted,
when
right?
You offer it
when you offer it, right?
Form of,
and that's really important. The other thing that gives you confidence with cash or a card is you have recourse, right? If there's a fraudulent transaction and so on, you feel that you have some form of recourse, right? It's not like you're going to, lose your crypto because you lost your hard drive and, none of those things will happen. So that's what is giving you confidence. Right. And then, of course, you have, a government that who's backing it and all of those types of things. So I think the question that people really need to ask themselves, whether they're looking at crypto or NFTs, is like, do those things,
are those criteria
met for them? Right.
Yeah.
Right. And in some instances, they are, right, because perhaps, you're operating in an environment. So one of the things where I think crypto can be really useful in Africa, in a lot of our countries, we have a lot of currency volatility. Mm-hmm. So a concern is if I don't want to hold cash, right? Because it's devaluing. But perhaps you also don't want to invest in anything, whether it's property or, buying cows and so on. And so then you're sitting there going, well, how do I hold this in a way that it will retain value, right? So that's a use case.
Yes.
That I just want to hold it and I want to make sure that it's not actually depreciating. So that makes sense. We also have a lot of issues around cross-border remittances. And I think there as well, it has real utility. So for me, you really have to ask yourself the questions around, whether it will be accepted, recourse, and really feeling that you have, a standard that's backing it up. But then you also have to ask yourself, is this the right tool for what I want to do? And the last question, of course, is, do you understand it? Never invest or be involved in something that you don't fully understand.
I love this because, the question starts off with what is crypto, but actually you're giving us the tools in terms of you don't necessarily have to have the definition of this thing, but if you can understand it and, kind of answer these questions, which are actually criteria and a checklist, then you'll actually be able to make the decision of whether to engage with this or not, as opposed to feeling left out because everybody else is doing it, or then joining a bandwagon that maybe doesn't make sense to you.
Yes.
And so I think that's a really responsible and sober-minded approach to this conversation. And I think it's important that entrepreneurs hear this, because as entrepreneurs, we like shiny things. And so like a magpie, we're going to try and collect all the different pieces of cutlery, but maybe they don't make sense in our nest. So I appreciate the guidance that's come from you in this space, especially because you are a player in the technology space, and of course as technology as applied to finance. And so we're going to wrap this conversation up with our quickfire questions.
Okay.
and it's fun. And so life before fintech was?
Retail financial services.
Financial inclusion means?
People getting opportunity.
Fintech is fun because?
It can change the world and really further the human project.
How many Bitcoin do you have?
Personally, none.
Buhle, thank you so much for a riveting conversation and for sharing so much of your time and your knowledge and your insights in this space. And so I look forward to chatting to you a little bit more about all things technology, all things Africa. I think we should do a travel podcast.
Yes.
And all things about just the different innovations out there. So thank you so much.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.